Joining me in the studio, Kazim Ali Balugan, and we're going to also be speaking to down the line Paul Bentz, and they're talking housing, both of them. And Kazim, we're talking. Keir Starmer's going out and about today. It always cracks me up. These politicians, they go out and about, and they know nothing about what they're talking about. They know nothing about your industry or what's required and whatever. And they're going to make out that they have got the answer to everything. That we need no housing, we need more housing. Seriously? It's obvious we do. Why don't they speak about it before this? Why do they leave it till today? Because they know there's an election happening, and then you never hear about it again. Tell me about your industry, the building trade. What do you need?
I think we need to streamline the planning process. I think for a lot of people, whether it be for owner-occupiers or for builders, the planning process is very stretched. Local councils are, sort of at their wits' end. It doesn't matter who you are. We find that the processes differ from council to council. I think standardisation, more investment to allow a simpler, faster process. Yeah,
why are we not getting that?
I just think it's a lack of budget. And I think when we look at things like saying, OK, there's not a budget to even fund the people in the planning department, yet we want to say we're going to commit to 1.5 million new homes. And I think people are really tired of these big sensationalised...
Yeah, heard it all before.
Exactly. And I think people just want to focus on things that what can make an impact in the here and now as opposed to 10, 15 years down the line.
Well, I just honestly don't believe anything will make a difference because I don't believe any of them are committed to it. And you're right, I don't think the funds are there for local authorities or to come from central government. Let's go to Paul Bentz. Now, Paul, you're interesting because you're an owner of Bentz Builders Merchants. It's a family business. You've been on the go for nearly 200 years, for goodness sake. Incredible. So you're the sixth generation to run the business. So if we are to make more house building happen, and you've heard what Kazim is talking about lack of funding, what do you think has to happen?
Well, look, morning, team. I'm nodding away here at your words, Eamon and Kazim now. I totally agree what you said there. And look, it's really tough trading conditions at the moment. I feel every year of our 170 years at the moment, last year we were down double digits in volume, and I think some of the non-financial things that can be helped with, we're looking at the Builders Merchants Federation are really pushing to get 15,000 apprenticeships through before 2030, and I think that will really help play a part in the building materials sector.
But the interesting thing about you, Paul, you believe a lot of those apprenticeships should be going to women. Tell us why that's so important.
There's a skills gap, but there's also a massive gender gap as well. I mean, this last year, the stats are showing that there's the most females ever employed in our industry at 325,000. There's been a good spike, but that's only 15%. There's 2 million males still. And we need to change that stigma and stereotype that it's just a place for males.
Do you know why we do need to change that? My wife says to me all the time, when we're in a hotel, she'll say, what man designed this room? Because there won't be a plug beside a mirror. There'll be completely things that'll stop her drying her hair or doing whatever she's supposed to do. Or, there will be cupboards or wardrobes that will have half length, so you can't hang a full dress. You know what I'm saying here.
Whatever it is. My mum worked in the building industry her entire career, and she was an architect, and she was constantly the only woman on the building site, dealing with builders every day. And it's definitely a design thing. There need to be more women in the sector.
So if there's more women working in your business, there's more women seeing it that way, that practical way as well, instead of all stupid blokes being there. What would you like to say about that, Kazim?
I think definitely, more opportunities for people getting into, trades at an earlier stage is definitely going to help bring up the quality, the quantity of available trades to help push the industry forward. And I think just from an education perspective as well, in terms of more housing, getting more people on the housing ladder, I think having conversations about financial literacy at an earlier stage would really help, bridge the gap between the young home ownership.
And what about the planning laws? Because I know that everybody from both colours of party, everyone says we're going to reform the planning laws, but at the end of the day, all of us, and we talked about this just last week on the programme, all of us want where we live to be nice. And I suppose there's an innate fear, isn't there, always, that someone's going to come along and plonk some horrendous housing development right in your neighbourhood. Planning is important. So how do you reform planning laws to enable, as Labour want to do today, 1.5 million new homes without upsetting everybody and also ruining what I guess is what makes it so beautiful? I
think an element of standardizations I touched on earlier. If people understand what's required, what you want in a local area, you know, the people within the building trade are going to want to provide, you know, attractive, nice-looking homes. But I think there's a disconnect between sometimes you can do something in one borough, it's completely different in terms of requirements in another borough. I think.
Does anybody, let me ask you this, right? So I started to take an eye and look for bungalows. I know what type of bungalow I would want and whatever. There's no chance of getting bungalows. Why are bungalows in such short demand?
I guess it's the footprint they generally take up, being a detached building that takes up a large footprint a lot of the time.
So you could build a bigger building and get more money for it on the same patch of land?
Effectively.
What would you do, Paul? Well, you've listened to us talking here in the studio. What do you need? How is business with you, for instance?
It's not brilliant, but it's not that bad. And I think when you look at our industry, it's the first industry to sort of push the country economy back to a good place. May I also say I don't think you're old enough yet for a bungalow, Eamon. There's a lot of large house builders sat on banks of land at the moment because, as Kazim said, the planning process is taking too long, and especially the appeal process. So that needs to speed up. But another one, an interesting one, is the tax relief taken away on landlords a few years ago. And a lot of them are selling up now. So I think that needs to be looked at. And look, whilst I've got my shopping list out here, you know, the government could look at a stamp duty holiday to really stimulate building too.
Do you ever think, I don't know if this is just me, but do you ever, as you're driving around or going to work in your cases, look at buildings that are being put up today and think, that's going to look rubbish in 100 years? Do you ever just think, we're all so short-sighted, we shove stuff up, and you know, so many of our buildings have lasted so many hundreds of years and look so beautiful, but we design so cheaply now. Is that a problem, do you think, in the sector, Paul?
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, obviously, designs and trends change over 100 years, and I'm sure when we look back at 100 years now, some of the stuff we build won't look great. I don't see that as being much of an issue in the industry at the moment. The other thing that I think could be changed is the way we look at mortgages. You look at the interest rates at the moment, okay, they're levelled out. They're still too high, but you look at what happens over in Europe. I believe recently in Italy, they did a fixed term 2% on your whole mortgage for the house, and they look at it differently to us, sort of from a 2 to 5 year fixed or variable rate. They look at it, you know, well, let's try and do a rate for 10 years, 15 years, and I think that's something that we're a bit blind to over here.
I want the two of you to think of what you would tell Keir Starmer. We're going to listen to a lot of platitudes from him today. I don't believe, as I say, a word of what he'll say will ever come to fruition. But Kazim, first of all, what would you think Mr. Starmer needs to hear today, or indeed Mr. Sunak?
I think they need to look at the more shorter-term solutions. Paul touched on it in regards to mortgage rates and helping, you know, owner-occupiers first and foremost. So I think a lot of people are renting, paying a high amount of money for rent, have been paying it for a considerable amount of time. And I think being able to use that track record of a renter to allow you to borrow at the same amount, I think would help a lot of people. I think also, you know, I think just the reform in general in terms of planning would really help. So they spoke very briefly about changes in being able to convert a house into 2 flats. I think we're having smaller families now. That potentially would work, because converting large houses means potentially you can stay in an area you would want to live in, live near mum and dad, as opposed to having to move further outside of London.
So as the demography of the area changes, then so should the use of the buildings change as well. And final word to you, Paul, what would you say?
Yeah, tax relief, stamp duty. Look, it's feast and famine in our industry, and I think that you know whoever's in government in the next 6 to 12 months, they really need to push and think a lot more. As you said, Eamon, you know, I don't know if it's just words at the moment. but they need to help us start building again.
Good man. Okay, good luck to you. Have a good season, Paul, Kazim. Thank you both
Thank you.
very much indeed. Thank you very much. So we're going to have just after 9 o'clock, aren't we? We've got somebody
We've
from
got
Labour.
Annalise Dodds, coming to talk to us about this patriotic economy that the Labour Party wants to talk about today, including turbo boosting.
Now, do you know what I could do on a Saturday and Sunday all day? Well, if I wasn't going to football. I could go to a show home.
Yeah.
I love car showrooms,
yeah.
and I love new house showrooms, and I love the idea of walking around the house, and they always think I'm going to buy, and I'm not going to buy, of course, and they go, "Oh, are you interested in this, Mr. Holmes?" And I say, "Yes," and I mean, "No, I'm not."